Happy Pride. Let us take a moment as we celebrate to remind ourselves that pride is a resistance. Because for far too many cannot live their authentic self. Pride is powerful, and it reminds us of who we are, where we came from, and where we are going. Because we know the realities and obstacles thrown at us for being different. As the interim chair of the Baltimore City LGBTQ Commission, I advise the mayor and city council on policy adoption and implementations. I am delighted to be part of this first ever JNF-USA Pride theme event. My love and passion for Israel, especially the queer community in a region where hatred, terror, persecution, and death reigns towards members of the community. It is more important to me now than ever before. Thankfully, JNF-USA is here for the land and the people of Israel. And thank you for joining us. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Zender Futternick, our other co-chair.
Thank you, Elaine. Hi, everyone. My name is Xander Futternick, and I'm proud to represent the JNF-Future Los Angeles chapter as co-chair for this event. Grateful to be involved in this program today and excited to introduce our speakers to you. First is Hadass Goldman, the co-founder of Makom, a network focused on empowering and revitalizing towns and villages throughout Israel. She is also a founding member of the LGBTQ+ Center in Afula and is co-founder and resource development director of the Tarbut, an Israeli organization that supports low-income neighborhoods. Arnon Alush serves as manager for Community's House for Pride and Tolerance, developing the LGBTQ+ Municipality Center in Haifa, empowering grassroots programs and working with other activist groups. He previously worked in mental health rehabilitation, helping people with mental health disabilities to integrate into society. Gil Elias serves as chairman and managing director of Pride House in Beersheba in the South. He is a poet and local activist in the Southern LGBTQ+ community, as well as a language and sexuality researcher at the Hebrew Language Department at Ben Gurion University of the Negev. And without further ado, I'll pass it off to my partner Quentin with me in Los Angeles, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Xander. Hello, everyone. Happy Pride. Thank you for joining us. I am thrilled to be the moderator for this first ever JNF-USA Pride event. Before we get started, I just want to read a quick disclaimer that JNF-USA is a 501c3, and this is an apolitical event. This is here to celebrate Pride and the amazing people that are making Israel a stronger place for the LGBTQ community. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a great discussion ready for you. So before we get started, I want to introduce each of our speakers and give them an opportunity to tell them a little bit about themselves, their organizations and communities, and help us explain to us what their LGBTQ experience in their communities is like. So let's go ahead and get started with Hadass.
Hi, everyone. Happy Pride. I hope everyone is doing well. My name is Hadass Goldman, and I am part of an artist urban kibbutz. I live in Afula, and I am this urban kibbutz is part of a network of urban communities that are focused on social change through arts and culture all over Israel. And specifically, one of the main programs that we've been promoting almost for 8 years now is empowering and building the local LGBT plus community in Afula and also in the region. And this is really, it started very, very small. And now there are really tens of people that are involved on almost on an everyday basis in activities, weekly activities here in the area, which I'll talk about more later. But really what I wanted to give an example of how we started, just to give the type of experience like Quentin asked, is that 7 years ago, a small team from my artist community that were part of we're all part of the LGBTQ community as well, found ourselves going whenever we wanted to go out to a party for some culture. We would get in the car and drive to Tel Aviv for an hour and a half or 2 hours to go out, and then we'd have to go back. And we sat together one night and we said, enough is enough. We don't want this we don't want this anymore. We want to create our own culture, our own parties. We want to be out in the open here in Afula, which is a small low-income town in the north of Israel, not very prevalent to the LGBT community. And then we started a whole production of parties and cultural events for the community, which turned into very, very successful events eventually. This was a very, very challenging process, but it started from connecting our own the personal need that we had as members of the LGBT plus community in a specific place to the needs of a broader community and a broader audience as well. So that's a little bit of the experience.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Arnon, I think I've known you the longest out of the three of our speakers at your time at the Haifa LGBTQ Center. Can you tell us a little bit about your community and introduce yourself and a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm Arnon and I'm 48. And yes, I'm going through a midlife crisis, but 48 in years of gay men is like counting them as dog years, which means I'm ancient, before internet. And it's important because these days we're having the first ever Israeli museum exhibition of LGBTQ history in Haifa. Who ever thought that Haifa has something to show about the history of the LGBT community? Because as Hadass said before, as what you say about gay men reaching 18 is they're starting to put some money to move to Tel Aviv. The best thing in Haifa was the road to Tel Aviv, and I think it changed through the years. And we are having these, we are the second center in Israel that is fully funded by the municipality. And we are called the Community's House for Pride and Tolerance, because we think there's no one community. We are an umbrella of communities, and we want to lighten and put in front the diversity and the different colors in each community and between each community. And I think that I'll speak about it maybe later, but Haifa is very much more feminist community than I think Tel Aviv or more the other good big communities, queer communities in Israel. And the fact that we built it not from nothing. There was history, but then we made a big change when the municipality gave us the opportunity to create this amazing program. And yet not to forget that we are LGBT members. The first Pride was a riot, and it still needs to be like that. So holding these two hats, the system one and the community activist one, is maybe one of the challenges of our center that I think is quite unique.
Wonderful. And Gil, you represent the center that is farthest south in the country. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce Irene and tell us more about your community?
Hey, my name is Gil. I'm the director and the chairman of the Pride House. And this is Irene. She's the fundraising and the foreign relations of the Pride House. So the Pride House provides, is a house that provides an answer to all groups of people in the community. And as a Pride House gives an answer to other LGBTQ groups operating in the South in a successful collaboration with other organizations Like in the Corona, we have a lot of activities with other organizations here in the South, and not just the organizations like Kigi or Teila or the student village, the first the Pride student village in Israel. We have also collaborations with Ofakim and Dimona and Bnei Shimon, a lot of groups, a lot of relationships with other centers, gay centers in the South. We tried to be like a brother or actually mother to a lot of centers in the South. Also, the Pride House has a lot of groups and a lot of activities that the municipality support them. Like the Bet HaMidrash, like Friday meals, and groups, a lot of groups like the women group, the transgender group, and others, etc. Also, we are producing the Pride Parade in Beersheba this in the 17th this week, and that's it. And we are like it's more complicated. It's like we are a family. We have a lot of chosen family in Beersheba, so it's much more like a chosen family than like a scene, a gay scene. Like we have a lot of like the queer family or the women family, and not just one thing.
That's beautiful. We're definitely going to come back to that. We want to hear more about this. So I think, you know, when people think of the two words LGBTQ in Israel, if those are in the same sentence, everyone immediately thinks of Tel Aviv. And two of our speakers have already brought this up. And Tel Aviv, you know, does have a very large parade, not just in terms of Israel, but one of the largest parades in the world. But we know that Tel Aviv is not Israel, the same way New York City or Los Angeles or Miami are not the United States. So I would love to just hear a little bit more about that distinction, you know, between Tel Aviv's very, very unique kind of area as a metro, and what it means for you to be building LGBTQ communities out on the frontier, out in the periphery, so people don't have to save up money, you know, when they turn 18 to try to move to Tel Aviv. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the work that you're doing to make your own communities that you grew up in, that you live in, you know, more welcoming to the LGBTQ community. So Gil, let's go ahead and start with you.
So it's very complicated. It's like, first of all, it was very difficult. It wasn't so easy. It's not just to build something. It's more like a small group of people, LGBTQ people that want that add a similar goals, like to find a home or to be with their chosen family. And at first it was with a lot of doubts from the municipality and a lot of homophobia from the society here in Beersheba. And after it, and all this reflected all the contradictions, reflected a lot of the homophobia from these organizations, the municipality or the whole society in Beersheba. And after it was, it's like when we understood that it was more insidious to the people in Beersheba, so we decided to make the Pride Parade, the first Pride Parade in 2015. But the municipality objected to this thing. So the whole LGBTQ community decided to protest in front of the municipality building. And this demonstration was attended by thousands of participants from all over the state, from all over Israel. Both LGBTQ people and straight people. And since then, every year, we are marching on the main street like this week. And all this made the Pride House be like a home. This is because that the name of the Pride House is house, because we are like a family. When you enter to the house, you see a living room, and not just not just a center or a scene. It's like we have a kitchen, we have a lot of things. We have a outdoor yard that we have a lot of activities there. To a lot of organizations, not just the Pride House, like the other LGBTQ organizations in Beersheba. And we are more social than a political organization.
Wonderful. And I love that in Israel, each of the LGBTQ centers aren't really called centers, they're called houses. And I think that's such a distinct difference from America. You know, we go to centers and it feels like an office building or, it's very industrial. But I've been in each of the Pride houses in Israel. And you're right, you walk in and there's a living room, there's a sitting area where we can be with our chosen family. And that's beautiful. So Hadas, I'm in Angelino now, and you mentioned in your intro that if you have to drive 2 hours to Tel Aviv to have community, that's just not sustainable long term. If I have to drive 30 minutes now, I'm not going to do it. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in Afula to make sure people don't have to go through that drive to be with their chosen family.
Yeah, I think that one of it's actually what's very interesting in general when you see the struggle of the LGBT community is the relationship between the civil society and community organizing that occurs by the LGBT community itself and the institution, whether it's the state or the municipality. And I think that in the periphery, it's one of the most outside of Tel Aviv, it's one of the most prominent things that you'll see is that the relationship with the municipality is really one of the biggest issues. Whether is it supporting, is it objecting, is it tolerating, is it taking over the community? Sometimes there are many organizations in Tel Aviv that are not happy about the municipality being that involved in Pride. So it's a complex relationship. But in any case, I think the most important thing is the fact that it's an organized community, and there in Afula, I started by telling the story of parties, okay, which of course culture and nightlife for the LGBT plus community is a very important thing, because we couldn't be out in the open historically. We had to be in the nightlife, and that's also where the protest started. And so historically, that's how it happened in Afula as well. We started by creating nightlife, gay nightlife in Afula. then after 2 years of producing these parties that were very artistic, there were drag performances, there was art, and we had a cooperation with a local bar, which was also very cutting edge for Afula at the time. And after 2 years of producing these parties that were very successful, we said, okay, producing parties and having nightlife is one thing, but what happens during the day? And how the name of the line of the parties was called Get Out, Get Out, get out of the house, get out of the closet, right? So we were saying, okay, how do we take this concept and we develop it not just for nightlife, but for day life as well? And the next step was really organizing, is just organizing the community even more, creating events every week, creating events for different segments within the community as well, for women, for men, for trans people, for youth, for 30 plus. And I think that this is still every day a struggle. Like, for example, in Afula, we are not supported by the municipality at all. It's a very, like, and the community the Afula community is also called Home in the Valley, because it's the Israel Valley. It's the region. Again, home, house, but we don't have a physical house. It's a concept. We meet every time in community centers or wherever we can. But I think that the biggest thing is really, and what's really tough is in the outside of like of Tel Aviv, everything you have to do it yourself. And that's, in one way, that's a good thing, because you create things in your own image and what you want them to be. But on the other hand, if you don't wake up every day and work to create events and for people to be able to meet, and content that will be interesting, for people to meet around, and also educating and advocating within the local, within schools, and also working with a municipality, even though it's not easy, then again, it's a certain life that gives you meaning, because it's not taken for granted in some way, but it's also can be really tough, because it's like you can't breathe. It's like you have to do it yourself all the time. So that's a little bit of where we are now.
Amazing. And Arnon, in the beginning, you said Haifa just used to be a stop on the way to Tel Aviv, and now it's been transformed into something different. Tell us a little bit about that transformation, how it took place, what inspired it, and what are you doing to build your community there, so people feel like they don't have to keep going on to Tel Aviv. They can stay in Haifa, they can stop in Haifa and want to be there, and not have to go to Tel Aviv looking, for their sense of community. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
I just want to say something you mentioned earlier, that it's interesting how all of the community LGBT centers are called houses or home. I want to correct you, or maybe shade Tel Aviv a little bit, because they are a center and we are a home or a house. And I think the fact that we say it and we didn't put it together, the three of us, it means something about how it is to be outside. Even when I've been to the States 3 years ago, and I visited at the same day the Manhattan Center and the Brooklyn Center, I think we are all Brooklyn in a way. But yeah, we cannot, I don't want to be Tel Aviv. I want to be Haifa. We want to find our own voice, what makes us unique. Many people who comes from Tel Aviv say about even the gay men up north that we are more authentic, we are more true, and not the mold, the squirrel, the mold that a gay man should be. I think that I speak for the other two representatives, that we are much more queer, we are much more diverse. The logo of the community, our community center, has much more than 6 colors, because we don't think that each community is one color. We want to celebrate diversity. And I think that, Haifa is what it is. We are a grassroots center. It means if gay men, privileged white gay men who go to party each week in Tel Aviv doesn't come and want to create something, there will be no programs for them. But when people that are a little bit more hungry, we are a little bit farther than the plate of, all the organizations, all the good life that we see as LGBT life in Tel Aviv. And I think, but it's not really different. Tel Aviv has the same variety of people, but it shines differently. It puts out different colors. And I think that at least we are not ashamed to put the other voices like on our, I want to show you something that we just got from the print. This is the Pride Parade logo, which means we are Haifa, and you see a heart and the diversity of people, and it is a stamp for windows for local businesses to support the LGBT community. They're getting a LGBT kit with flags and stuff, and for the first time, like 20 businesses signed to get these LGBT kit. And I think it's a little different because we make things, and I think Hadass and Gil said, we are much more creative, we are much more diverse. Haifa is much more feministic than Tel Aviv in every aspect regarding the LGBTQ community. When we are doing our education, we speak about gender and not about LGBT identities, because the feministic struggle is the LGBT struggle, because as long as you can hurt a woman because she's a woman, you can kill a trans woman, or you can hit a gay man because they show, and these are voices that I don't think you hear them in the front in a much more subtle community like Tel Aviv. And I think what none of us said, but the minorities is something that we deal a lot. Haifa is dealing and doing the best we can to work with the LGBT Arab and Palestinian community. A lot of Palestinian refugees. This year we got 3 Palestinian refugees women for the first time from the West Bank. It was usually gay men fleeing from the West Bank. And I think it's something very different when it is on our first agenda. And for example, on the Pride Parade, our Pride Parade is this Friday. We are going to have a aromantic, asexual, sapphy or lesbian spokesman for the first time, because we really try to put these voices that we are not usually putting them up front to give them a voice to be heard. And I think that's something very different, and that makes us who we are, and to create a home to those who want that.
Amazing. Thank you. So, each of your communities are so different just because of the different demographics that you're working with, the different communities that you find yourselves in, the different physical locations that some of these pride houses are in. So, because of that diversity of not only demographics and location, but your programs are all very different too, to meet the needs of those diverse communities. So I'd just love to hear from each of you, what is one project that you're working on that you're really proud of and that you would like us to know and to help celebrate with you. So Arnon, why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
It's like asking me to pick a child who I love the most. It's very
I know. Who's your favorite?
Yeah, and I think we are proud. We have so many programs, but I want to be very, I forgot the word, doesn't matter. I got an email from a program, an organization we are working with regarding a very new program that I never spoke about that outside the community center's wall. So you'll be the first. A few months ago, I sat down with my new boss at the municipality. She's in charge of all the community building in Haifa. And she said, I want you to meet someone. And I met this guy from a very new organization called OREC. I don't know how you translate OREC. It's like main vein. You can say OREC. This is an organization that builds communities, like real life, תעזרו לי דוברי עברית, קהילות ממשיות, קהילות מקומיות, local communities that live together in some form for people who doesn't have family support. And she said, why don't you take this amazing program and build a real community for the LGBT community in Haifa and to people who doesn't have family support. And it's a 2-year program with a lot of thought behind it to build up a group of 20 people. They will be young adolescents, 20 to 30, with not so much family support, and to teach them how to talk, to trust as a community, how to work with ordeals and complexity. Gil said, chosen family. It's actually to build a real family, to learn the power of a community regarding economical choices, to find someone who can sign as a, I don't know how you say it in English, when I need to sign on a contract for a leasing of an apartment. Sometimes people don't.
Co-signer.
Sometimes you can stay in the street because you don't have a co-signer. And if you have this community, you have a back. And they will learn a lot of economical options that they don't have these days, how to put, common saving program for extreme times, many things that never happened in Israel, I think, regarding the LGBT community. We are so used to say that the LGBTQ is a community, but maybe for the first time, we will actually build a local life-living community. And I find it to be, I'm very scared to share it with you because, I'm putting it out in the open and we are just started this dream, but I find it to be the most wow thing that we are dreaming about these days.
It's amazing. It's very beautiful, and you continue to inspire me with your different programs that I've seen over the years. It's amazing. So let's go ahead and go back to Gil. Gil, tell us, what's one specific project that you guys are doing at the Pride House there in Beersheba that you want to share with us?
So in Beersheba, we like to call it a community for community. Like the Pride Parade, we are doing it, the Pride, we have a slogan for the Pride. The Pride is for communities, all of us. And this is the slogan of the Pride. So this year we've done something, one of a major event. It's a long-lasting tradition in the Pride House, a community center, but unlike our other community events that specifically for the LGBTQ community, this one is open to the public, the whole society of the Beersheba, and those people with low income who wouldn't have a seder out otherwise. This year, we had between 30 to 40 participants in this project, and it's a record high for this event. This event I fully founded by Kivunim, the city company for culture and entertainment. And it was like a social project for a lot of people in the society of Be'er Sheva, and not just for the LGBTQ community. And it's like a community give a hand for the other communities. We had a lot of families in this Seder, and a lot of, and not just gay people. And it's like it was a very, very family, very, yeah. It was like very diverse and very inclusive. It was like very warm project for a lot of people in Be'er Sheva, and to see the solidarity between LGBTQ community and the other communities in Be'er Sheva, it makes a lot of people understood what we are as a Pride House, a community for communities. And that's it.
Great. And Hadass, what about you and Afula? What is one project that you're very proud of that you want to share with us?
So I'll share a small but important project, which is about educating the wider community that's not aware of the diversity and of the LGBT plus community. And what the project is distributing books to kindergartens that are in the area, and the books that tell stories about alternative families and LGBT plus families. And this is something that it sounds small, but it's unimaginably radical to do this in to distribute books. So kindergarten teachers can read with the kids in the kindergarten. If there are LGBT plus families, then that creates more inclusivity for them. So this month we have a goal of distributing to 100 kindergartens books in the area. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. And it's not always easy. I mean, it's not always easy. They don't always want the books, of course. So part of the process is going and meeting with the teachers and getting them to and really creating, first of all, conversation about it, and then delivering the books as well.
It's amazing, and we know how important representation is. To start that at a young age for these young queer kids to grow up and to see themselves and their families represented early. Is beautiful. It's amazing. I could sit here and talk with you guys all day, but I do want to give our audience a chance to ask questions as we're nearing the end of our program. So if you do have any questions for our speakers, please submit them to JNF-USA in the chat box, and we will take some audience questions. And they're starting to come through already, so I'll go ahead and start with the first one. This is an interesting one. So we know in Israel, most people have to serve mandatory service in the military, and that Israel has had earlier service for the LGBTQ community than other countries. Can you tell us a little bit about what the experience of LGBTQ soldiers is in the IDF, and maybe how it compares to other countries? I will let whoever wants to step in and take that to start. Arnon.
Arnon?
I'm looking for, I just got a message. I'll start from the beginning. Last year, we had two young volunteers before the army from the community that were very anxious and frustrated because they didn't know what they're entering. We do have a bit of more knowledge about trans people going to the army and what are their rights and etc. But regarding any other LGBTQ member who is not identifying as a trans person, we don't. And they made a small my English, like it's the time, Shelon. Questionnaire for young people before the army and in the army to understand what do they fear, what do they need, and they worked with the army to get answers, which was a very hard thing because it's very hard to get official answer from the army because it means they have to obligate to everything they say. But just today, these two lovely youngsters told me that their questionnaire, like their little research, was published on the Aguda site. And it's not good, but it's not bad. You know, we have in the army people who need to know about the LGBTQ community and their needs, and you can address them. We do deserve to have a free, like a private shower time if it's harder for us to take a shower, a commune shower in the army, and many other things that can help you. But it's still, well, my army was very, very, very long ago, but it's still not a very safe and normal place for the queer community. That's my knowledge about that issue.
And do any of our other speakers want to weigh in on that as well? Gil?
I would like to say something. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I was released from the army when I was 21, but I've been doing reserves ever since. I'm 35 now. I've been doing reserves for 14 years. And I think the thing about the army, and as much as any other place, it's a very diverse place and you meet a lot of different people. And that's a chance for us. And for me, especially, I walk around in the army with the uniform, with a little pin with the LGBTQ flag, with all the colors, to make sure people know, even if we're not talking about it. And, you know, a lot of people that I've met there, some of them were my commanders, some of them were just people that I had to work with, were very open to listening. And it's a great chance when you enter and you're, you know, where I am in my position now that I'm at peace with myself and other these different things and station. And I haven't stumbled upon to do the reserve with me. They accept me and they know that it's just who I am. And you're 18 and everything else is scary as well to be in that position. But if you get to the point where you can actually kind of force it into people's minds and talk about it, people that you wouldn't have met any other way, it's a great thing to do.
Amazing. And Israel, you know, has had open service for the LGBTQ community since 1993, which is young compared to most other Western militaries. And as Arnon mentioned, there is more information now coming out about how to best support transgender soldiers. And if you are transitioning during your time in the military will actually help you with your transition, which is amazing. We have more questions coming in, so I want to move on. What is the support system for LGBTQ couples who are looking to start a family or have children in Israel? I know this has been a hot button issue in the community the last few years, and there's been some Supreme Court cases that have changed this dynamic a little bit. But if someone could, you know, weigh in on kind of what is the process like and the support system for queer families that want to grow their families to have children. Adas, do you want to start?
I will start. I will say I'm not an expert on this. So Non and Gail, you can weigh in whenever you want. But as you may or may not know, the option of wow, now I lost the word. How do you say pundikaut? Non. עכשיו אתה תעזור לי. Surrogacy, תודה, כן. Is not an option that's available for LGBT people in Israel. This has been one of the biggest issues politically over the past few years. In general, I will say not just about family, about marriage as well. And this is something that the context of it sits on the fact that in Israel, we don't have civil marriage. So that's one of the things that makes also all of the marriage in Israel needs to be recognized in order for it to get married in Israel. It needs to be recognized by the rabbinite institution in Israel. And so you can get married abroad, and then it will be recognized officially in Israel, but you can't officially you can't marry through the regular rabbinite in Israel. And in terms of אתם רוצים להמשיך אותי על בג"צים ודברים כאלה?
You see how much we are excited to speak about that.
Yes.
it is a complicated thing, I think, you know. She said about high court
rulings.
And one, I think, of our friends, Daniel Mariuma, I think which is a LGBT person who is married to a trans man, and they have 2 kids. And they got to high court ruling because just 2 years ago, the country didn't know how to deal with them, and they didn't want to. They signed up the trans father as a mother on the birth certificate, and 2 women couple who have a newborn, the government or the country doesn't recognize the second woman as a legal mother. She needs to adopt the kid. They make a lot of difficulties for us. And I think only like the year before COVID, when we had our last Pride parade, for the first time in Haifa, we had a contra parade a day before for real families parade, meaning we are not allowed to be a family or to be announced as a family. And if the municipality doesn't choose, we have no civil rights, you know, regarding taxes and stuff for people who are living together for 15 years, but they're not married, or they cannot declare themselves as a couple. But on the other side, we are learning to take care of ourselves. And these last few weeks and months, the Aguda is opening. I think it will be in the major cities, a new family therapy program with lawyers that go through specific knowledge regarding family and LGBT family laws and rights. And we are not, you know, giving up regarding that subject. It's a daily struggle. Just the other day, somewhere in the mid of the country, a couple, like a woman and a man couple, are getting divorced, and the woman is suing her ex-husband to take away the custody of the kids because he's gay and he betrayed her. And it's an never-ending struggle regarding that subject.
I wanted to mention one more thing about that is because it connects also to the issue of like national politics and local politics, which are also very different in Israel. And like what I mentioned before about the state recognizing marriage, there's actually been an initiative in the past, and which has gained progress in the past year, of local municipalities recognizing gay couples within the municipality. Again, not mostly in small towns, peripheral towns, but different municipalities across Israel are recognizing, which means if you receive like a family certificate, which gives you certain rights that families can get, whether it's like discounts in public facilities, or access to certain services that you can only receive if you're a family. And so many of the local municipalities and cities have sort of gone around the state not recognizing the LGBT family. So this is a sort of a complex issue that's happening, and there are different things like one step forward, two steps back, but there are interesting things that are happening.
And then, it's similar, to the United States, to where, that's a complicated question to answer. And in some aspects, we're far ahead. We're grateful to have marriage equality here, but before we did, it was a state-by-state initiative, and we have 50 states, here we had to cover until we got a federal ruling. But a lot of leaders in our marriage equality movement here in America actually looked to what Israel did and said, okay, if we can accomplish national marriage equality, let's do a state-by-state initiative. Or if our state isn't ready to have marriage equality, but you get married in the neighboring state, we'll recognize it. So, there is a lot of work to be done. And that came, that policy did come through a high court ruling. And also in 2017, Arnon mentioned the high court ruling about adoption. But I think it was actually Arnon that said this at the beginning. Pride, is not just a celebration. It was a riot. And we have a lot of work to do. Yes. So we are wrapping up, but I do want to ask one last question here. And this is coming from Sho Schmitzman, who is affiliated with Macomb, our JNF's partner in Israel, that's doing some of this great community building work. And Shosh asked, there are a lot of kids leaving their communities in the periphery, in the frontier, to go to Tel Aviv so they can feel accepted. We've heard a little bit about the work that you are all doing in your individual communities, but what can the periphery, what can the frontier really offer that these young adults will maybe want to come back to the communities that they grew up in and realize, I don't have to run away. What's kind of the hope? What's the dream to reach some of these people that left, and hopefully that they'll come back to the communities that they grew up in?
I can start maybe answering this. I think it's interesting because like in Home in the Valley, again, which is the name of the LGBT plus community in Afula, so about 30% of the people who are involved, who are like members of that community, who are part of the activity, about 30% are people that are originally from Afula, that were born and raised in Afula. The rest are not. And sometimes, and part of the reason that they came back to Afula after they did their run in Tel Aviv or wherever they went to, they lived the life that Arnon also mentioned, that not everybody wants to really live by certain standards, and in Tel Aviv, and a certain culture that's there. And then they asked themselves, okay, what are we going to do? And they looked to Afula and they saw that there's an organized community there and that there are people there. And they said, okay, we can come back. And they became involved in this local LGBT plus community when they came back, when they're like, after they did like 5, 6, 7, sometimes even 10 years outside of Afula. and they came back to the region. So I think the main thing that the main theme is organized community. I think it's something that people need all over, not just the LGBT plus community. They need a home, they need a place to be, they need a sense of belonging, they need meaning. And I think that's what we have to offer, maybe more than anything else.
Wonderful. All righty. Well, thank you all so much. I want to turn it over to one of our co-chairs, Jonathan, to close us out. Jonathan?
On mute.
Sorry, guys, technical difficulty. All right. Hi, my name is Jonathan S., and I'm proud to represent the JNF-Future Miami chapter as co-chair of this event. I got involved with JNF right before the start of COVID, and I've been so proud of the work JNF-USA has carried out over this tough period. Thanks to folks like you, the future in Israel is bright. This organization is constantly investing in the land and people of Israel. JNF-USA is improving the infrastructure of Israel's frontier communities in the north and south, investing in Zionist education and advocacy here in the States, and financing environmental research and development, and so much more. As a proud member of JNF-Future, JNF-USA's Young Professional Division, I love networking with like-minded individuals and peers. If it's important to you as well, I encourage you to go to our website, jnf.org/JNFfuture, or reach out to the professional servicing in your area. This is the first event of many geared towards our proud LGBTQ plus family. If you have any suggestions for future programming, please reach out to me or your local JNF professional. And now I wanted to give you the next 3 important opportunities to throw on your calendar of events that we have coming up. Our first event is Sunday, June 27th at 1 p.m. It's our next virtual event, and it's called Mother Nature, Women Healing Women. Our next event will be called Spectacular Sunday on September 12th, a day of giving from coast to coast. And our third upcoming event is Travel with Us to Israel. There are 2 exciting opportunities for this to happen.